My name is Dr. Elias Vance. For 30 years, I was a geologist for the United States Geological Survey, a career built on observable facts, seismic data, and peer-reviewed analysis. My world was rock solid. Literally, I mapped fault lines, analyzed mineral deposits, and spent countless nights under a blanket of stars, not searching for little green men, but for the subtle tremors of our own planet. UFOs? Alien abductions? Ancient astronauts? Fanciful tales, campfire stories for those who preferred fantasy to the elegant logic of science. I was a skeptic, a staunch one, armed with a doctorate and an unwavering belief in what I could see, measure, and explain. Or so I thought. It was the summer of 2018 when my carefully constructed reality began to fray at the edges, not with a bang, but with a whisper from the red rocks of Sedona, Arizona. I had been sent there for a routine assessment of an unusual magnetic anomaly detected in satellite imagery. Sedona, with its famous vortexes and spiritual mystique, was precisely the kind of place where I expected to find natural geological quirks, easily explained, probably exaggerated by the New Age crowd. I packed my gear, my cynicism firmly in place, ready to debunk another local legend. The first few days were exactly as predicted. Stunning scenery, yes, but nothing out of the ordinary geologically. I hiked the trails, set up my magnetometers, and took core samples. The data was consistent, showing minor fluctuations, nothing to write home about. I was preparing to file my report and move on when a wizened old Navajo man named Hakan, approached me near Bell Rock. He'd been watching me for a few days, his gaze unnervingly steady. "You're looking for something, Dr. Vance," he said, his voice raspy like dry leaves. "But you're looking in the wrong place, with the wrong tools." I gave him my standard polite dismissal. "Just doing my job, Hakan. Geological survey." He smiled, a slow, knowing smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "The Earth has secrets, deeper than your instruments can see. Secrets that hum beneath these rocks, older than any human memory." He pointed vaguely towards an less traveled area, away from the main tourist trails, towards a section of the Red Rocks formations that seemed to ripple with an almost unnatural purple hue in the fading light. "Go there, when the moon is new and the air is still. Listen, truly listen." I dismissed it as local folklore, a poetic invitation to a non-existent mystery. But his words and the unsettling intensity of his gaze lingered. Later that week, during a particularly clear, moonless night, something compelled me to revisit the satellite data. I zoomed in on the area Hakan had indicated, cross-referencing it with historical aerial photographs, and that's when I saw it. A faint, almost imperceptible geometric pattern, a subtle distortion in the landscape that simply shouldn't be there, hidden beneath layers of erosion and vegetation. It was too regular, too precise to be natural. My scientific curiosity, dormant for decades when it came to anything unexplained, flickered to life. It was a spark, small but insistent, in the vast dark of my skepticism, and it was leading me into a mystery I was entirely unprepared to face. After my unsettling discovery on the satellite maps, I couldn't shake the feeling that Hakan's words weren't just folklore. The geometric pattern was faint, almost designed to be overlooked, but once seen, it couldn't be unseen. It was a perfect, six-pointed star, impossibly large, etched onto the very landscape, centered on a specific remote mesa known locally as Whispering Peak. I decided to investigate, not with my official USGS equipment, but with my personal gear, under the cover of the pre-dawn darkness. Call it a hunch, call it a scientist's desperate need to verify an anomaly, or perhaps call it the first tendrils of obsession. The hike was strenuous, the path barely visible. As I approached Whispering Peak, a strange stillness fell over the desert. The usual nocturnal sounds, the rustling of coyotes, the hoot of an owl, vanished. The air grew heavy, almost electric. My portable magnetometer,
A device designed to measure subtle shifts in the Earth's magnetic field began to whine erratically. Its needle swung wildly, then pinned itself to the far end of the scale, something I'd only seen during powerful solar flares. But the sky was clear, the stars blazing. This was no solar phenomenon. I reached the summit of Whispering Peak just as the first sliver of dawn painted the eastern sky. There, at the very center of the geometric pattern I'd seen from orbit, was a large, obsidian-like rock formation. It was unlike anything I'd ever encountered. Its surface was unnaturally smooth, reflecting the nascent light with a deep, dark sheen. It wasn't volcanic glass, nor any known mineral deposit. As I drew closer, my hand trembling as I held up my spectral analyzer, the device went completely haywire, emitting a high-pitched shriek. The air around the rock pulsed, a subtle vibration that I could feel in my bones. It was as if the very fabric of reality was being stretched and thinned in its presence. I cautiously extended a gloved hand towards the rock. Before I made contact, a distinct hum vibrated through my fingertips, a low-frequency resonance that felt more like a thought than a sound. Then a wave of sensation washed over me, not physical pain, but an overwhelming presence. It was as if I was standing before something ancient, intelligent, and utterly alien. A whisper, not with words, but with images and feelings, flooded my mind. It was brief, intense, and left me gasping for air, clutching my chest. My scientific mind screamed hallucination, but my gut knew otherwise. This wasn't just a geological anomaly. This was a direct, undeniable communication from something else. I stumbled back, heart pounding, the cold sweat of fear mingling with the exhilaration of profound discovery. The sun was now fully over the horizon, casting the desert in a warm, familiar glow, but the obsidian rock still hummed, a silent sentinel of an unimaginable truth. My skepticism had been shattered, replaced by a terrifying, exhilarating certainty. I knew, with absolute clarity, that I had just touched something that should not exist on Earth, and I knew with an even greater certainty that whatever it was far from dormant. It was waiting, and perhaps it was watching me.
The encounter at Whispering Peak left me a changed man. The scientific paradigms I had held sacred for decades crumbled under the weight of an undeniable, visceral experience. The hum from the obsidian rock, the mental download of cosmic images. It was too real, too profound to be dismissed as fatigue or hallucination. I returned to my makeshift camp in Sedona, not to pack up, but to strategize. I knew I had to go back, but this time with a plan. I spent the next few days in a blur of research, cross-referencing ancient texts, local Native American legends, and even those fanciful UFO reports I had so readily dismissed. Hakon's words kept echoing in my mind, secrets that hum beneath these rocks, older than any human memory. The geometric pattern, the obsidian rock, they felt like markers, guideposts to something far greater. Using the precise coordinates from the satellite imagery, I triangulated the center of the six-pointed star pattern. It led me not directly to Whispering Peak, but to a seemingly innocuous alcove in the red rock formations a few miles away. Armed with a more powerful ground-penetrating radar and an almost reckless sense of purpose, I returned to the desert under the cover of a cloudy, moonless night. The air was still thick with the lingering scent of desert rain, and the silence was absolute, save for the rhythmic beeping of my radar. I swept the device across the alcove, expecting natural rock. Instead, a clear, artificial anomaly appeared on the screen, a perfectly smooth, triangular void directly beneath the surface. It was large, at least 15 feet high, and extended deep into the rock. My heart pounded with a mix of fear and exhilaration. This wasn't a cave. It was an entrance. Working quickly and carefully, I used a high-frequency sonic drill, modified for precision, to carefully cut away the surface layer of sandstone. To my astonishment, the rock beneath gave way with surprising ease, revealing not more sandstone, but a dark, metallic surface, impossibly smooth and cool to the touch. It seemed to be a perfect, seamless triangular panel designed to blend flawlessly with the surrounding rock. With a final, gentle push, the panel retracted inward with a soft hydraulic hiss, revealing a dark, silent passage. My headlamp beam cut through the ancient dust, revealing a corridor unlike anything earthly. The walls were not carved rock, but a polished, dark material, similar to the obsidian on Whispering Peak, but with an internal luminescence that pulsed faintly. And everywhere, etched into the dark surfaces, were intricate glyphs. They were not hieroglyphs or pictograms, but complex geometric patterns, spirals, nested circles, and symbols that seemed to defy conventional understanding. They glowed with an internal, ethereal blue light, slowly shifting and rearranging themselves as if reacting to my presence. I cautiously stepped inside, the air suddenly still and cold, carrying a faint metallic scent. The entrance sealed silently behind me, plunging me into complete darkness, save for the glow of the glyphs in my headlamp. I was standing in an ancient artificial structure, buried deep within the earth, undoubtedly connected to the obsidian sentinel on the peak. The reality of it was almost too much to bear. My mind, once a fortress of scientific reason, was now a playground for the extraordinary. I was no longer a geologist, I was an accidental archaeologist of the impossible. The journey had just begun, and I knew, deep in my soul, that this hidden place held answers that would unravel the very fabric of human history.
The glowing glyphs on the walls of the corridor seemed to guide me, their ethereal light creating an almost hypnotic path. They shifted, pulsed, and occasionally rearranged themselves, as if responding to my thoughts or proximity. The air grew colder the deeper I ventured, and the silence was profound, broken only by the echo of my own breathing and the soft rhythmic thrumming that seemed to emanate from the very structure itself. It wasn't menacing, but rather a constant low-frequency vibration, like a massive, ancient machine operating deep underground. After what felt like an eternity, the corridor opened into a colossal circular chamber. My headlamp beam was swallowed by the sheer scale of the space. The ceiling was impossibly high, a vast dome of the same dark, polished material with faint internal light sources that cast a soft ambient glow, revealing more glowing glyphs etched into every surface. The chamber felt more like a cathedral than a buried structure, a testament to an intelligence far beyond human comprehension. In the very center of the chamber, a circular platform rose from the floor. As I stepped onto it, the ambient light intensified, and from the center of the platform, a column of shimmering, multicolored light erupted upwards, coalescing into an intricate, dynamic holographic projection. It wasn't a static image, but a living, breathing display of cosmic information. It was a three-dimensional star map, but not of our current night sky. It showed constellations in positions that predated human observation, nebulae long since collapsed, and star systems that resonated with the forgotten whispers I'd received from the Obsidian Sentinel. As I gazed in mesmerized awe, the projection began to cycle through sequences. First, the birth and death of galaxies, then the formation of planetary systems, all depicted with breathtaking clarity and precision. Then it focused on our own solar system, showing Earth's geological evolution, but with unsettling additions. There were brief, fleeting images of what appeared to be vast structures on Mars, and an unmistakable artificial ring around a primordial Venus. My mind reeled. This wasn't just ancient, it was impossibly ancient. It suggested a presence, an intervention, in the very genesis of our corner of the cosmos. Then the hologram zoomed in on Earth, on the North American continent specifically. A grid of glowing energy lines appeared, intersecting at various points, many of which corresponded to known sacred sites and energy vortexes, including Sedona. But the most shocking revelation was a detailed topographical map of Arizona, showcasing the vast, six-pointed star pattern I had seen from orbit, now glowing brightly within the hologram. At its center, a pulsating icon marked Whispering Peak, and to my utter astonishment, a smaller, intricately detailed schematic of the very chamber I was standing in. This place, this anomaly, was clearly part of a much larger, global, or even galactic network. The hologram didn't offer explanations in words, but in pure, unfiltered information, a language of light and geometry that bypassed my rational mind and went straight to my core. It was a history lesson delivered by an alien consciousness, a truth so profound it threatened to shatter everything I knew about my place in the universe. We were not alone. We had never been alone. And the entities who left this place behind were not just visitors, they were architects, silent guardians, or perhaps something far more complicated. I was standing at the precipice of a revelation that could redefine humanity itself, and the weight of that knowledge was both terrifying and intoxicating.
The holographic projection in the central chamber didn't just display a star map or an ancient history of Earth, it was an interactive archive. As I instinctively reached out, my fingers passing through the shimmering light, the images shifted, responding to my proximity, or perhaps my intent. The celestial map dissolved, replaced by a visual chronicle of what seemed to be the beings responsible for this incredible structure. Before me, a series of elegant, crystalline stelae emerged from the chamber floor, surrounding the central platform. Each stela pulsed with its own internal light, and from them, translucent holographic figures shimmered into existence. These were the keepers, or perhaps the builders. They were slender, graceful beings, taller than any human, with elongated limbs and heads. Their skin seemed to be made of pearlescent light, and their large, almond-shaped eyes were deep pools of intelligent compassion, devoid of any discernible aggression or malice. They were beautiful in an ethereal, non-human way, radiating an aura of profound wisdom and tranquility. The holograms weren't static. They moved, interacted, and through them, a story unfolded in a language beyond words, a narrative conveyed through pure telepathic impression, interwoven with visual metaphors. I witnessed their journey across vast interstellar distances, their arrival on a primordial Earth, not as conquerors, but as tenders. They cultivated life, guided evolution, and imbued early humanity with a spark of consciousness. They were the silent catalysts, the unseen hand behind legends of gods and creators. The glyphs on the walls, I now understood, were not merely symbols, but complex expressions of their philosophy, their science, and their deep connection to the cosmos. I saw them constructing this very facility in Sedona, along with others across the globe at pivotal energetic points. These structures weren't just observatories or archives. They were sophisticated energy conduits, harmonic resonators designed to interface with Earth's natural ley lines and even influence planetary development. The obsidian sentinel on Whispering Peak was a focal point, a receiver and transmitter for this vast network, designed to awaken when certain cosmic alignments occurred or when humanity reached a specific stage of technological and spiritual readiness. The most profound revelation, however, was their purpose. They weren't here to control or dominate. They were here to safeguard, to guide, and to wait. The holographic narrative showed a period of their departure, an exodus forced by an unknown cataclysm or perhaps a planned evolution to another dimension of existence. But before they left, they embedded fragments of their knowledge, their technology, and even their genetic markers within humanity, ensuring our species would eventually awaken to its true potential and its place within the galactic family. We were in essence their legacy, a living library of their cosmic journey. As the final holographic image faded, leaving only the silent, glowing stelae, I felt an incredible sense of connection, a profound shift in my own understanding of reality. I was no longer just Elias Vance, the geologist. I was a recipient of ancient knowledge, a witness to a truth that transcended human history. The loneliness I had felt upon entering the chamber was replaced by a sense of belonging, a profound awareness of our interconnectedness with something vast and magnificent. But this revelation came with a heavy burden, the knowledge that such a truth, if unleashed carelessly, could shatter human civilization.
I was now a keeper of this secret, and the world outside, with its governments, its militaries, and its rigid scientific institutions, was utterly unprepared for what lay beneath the red rocks of Sedona.
Leaving the central chamber with its profound revelations was like stepping out of a dream. The silence of the corridors now felt less peaceful and more foreboding. The weight of what I had learned pressed down on me, transforming every step into a conscious act of defiance against the unknown. I had touched the truth, and the truth was now inextricably bound to me. As I retraced my steps through the glowing, glyph-laden passages, I noticed a subtle change. The rhythmic thrumming of the facility had intensified, a low, resonant hum that vibrated through the very rock of the mountain. The ethereal blue light of the glyphs pulsed with greater urgency, and occasionally a new symbol would briefly flash, almost imperceptibly, before fading back into the existing patterns. It was as if the entire structure was coming alive, responding to an internal timer or an external trigger. Reaching the triangular entrance, I found the metallic panel had not sealed completely. A thin sliver of light from the outside world cut through the darkness, revealing dust motes dancing in the air, but these dust motes seemed to shimmer with an unusual energy. My geological equipment, which I had left just outside the entrance, was now glowing faintly, its readouts displaying a cascade of unknown data. The magnetic anomaly, which had initially drawn me to Sedona, was no longer just a localized fluctuation. It was radiating outwards, forming a perfect, expanding sphere of intense energy that encompassed Whispering Peak and the entire hidden complex. It dawned on me with a chilling certainty. My presence, or perhaps the mere passage of time since the last cosmic alignment indicated by the holographic map, had activated an awakening protocol. The builders had set this facility, and perhaps others like it, to re-engage at a predetermined moment, a moment that was now. The obsidian sentinel, the energy grid across Earth, the very structure I was in, they were all coming online, like a colossal, ancient machine stirring from a millennia-long slumber. And then, the other part of the equation surfaced: my government contacts. The satellite data that led me here in the first place would not have been unique to me. Others, with far greater resources and less benevolent intentions, would have surely detected the escalating energy signature. Whispers of unidentified aerial phenomena and anomalous energy readings would quickly turn into concrete intelligence reports. My premonition was chillingly accurate. As I carefully navigated the last few feet of the hidden tunnel, the thrumming from deep within the alien complex grew to a crescendo, vibrating through the very soles of my boots. The faint light seeping through the triangular entrance was no longer the gentle glow of dawn, but the harsh, artificial glare of high-intensity floodlights. When the last segment of the entrance receded, opening fully to the outside world, I was met not by the tranquil desert, but a scene ripped straight from a covert operations thriller. Standing before me, silhouetted against the stark headlights of multiple armored Humvees, was a squad of heavily armed men. They were clad in tactical black gear, their faces obscured by balaclavas and night vision goggles that glowed with an eerie green light. The barrels of their assault rifles were aimed directly at my chest, red laser dots dancing unnervingly across my jacket. "Dr. Elias Vance," a voice boomed from behind the lead operative, amplified by a speaker. "Do not move. Place your hands on your head and step away from the entrance." My heart hammered against my ribs, but a strange sense of calm settled over me. I had expected this. I raised my hands slowly, instinctively stepping away from the triangular opening. The desert air, once a source of peace, was now thick with the metallic scent of weaponry and the palpable tension of a military standoff. From the shadows, a figure emerged. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a dark suit,
his silver hair slicked back and his face a mask of cold authority. General Maxwell Thorne, a name whispered in hushed tones within certain government circles, a man known for heading highly classified retrieval and containment operations. He carried himself with an air of absolute control, his eyes, even in the dim light, piercing and analytical. "Dr. Vance," he stated, his voice devoid of emotion, "you've made quite a discovery, one that was not authorized." "General," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady, "what you see here is beyond any national security protocols. It's not a threat. It's a revelation, an ancient, benevolent intelligence that predates humanity." Thorne gave a short, humorless laugh. "Benevolent? Doctor, you've been inside. You've been exposed. Your judgment is compromised. This facility, whatever it is, represents a strategic asset and a potential threat. It will be secured, analyzed, and contained." He gestured, and two operatives moved to flank me, their hands ready to seize me. "No," I pleaded, desperation lacing my voice, "you don't understand. This isn't something to be weaponized or locked away. It's a library, a conduit, a message. If you treat it as a threat, you risk activating defensive protocols, or worse, silencing the only chance humanity has to truly understand its origins." But my words fell on deaf ears. Thorne's expression remained impassive. "Take him and secure the entrance. I want a full sweep of that facility within an hour. Everything is to be documented and brought back to Site Gamma." As the operatives grabbed my arms, I turned back towards the triangular entrance, now illuminated by their powerful lights, its ancient glyphs pulsing with a faint, almost mournful glow. I knew that what they intended to do would be a grave mistake. They saw a resource. I saw a sacred trust, and I knew, with a sinking feeling, that the awakening of the Sedona anomaly was about to encounter the destructive ignorance of human fear, setting off a chain of events that could have unforeseen, catastrophic consequences for all of us. The whispers of the Red Rocks led me to the truth, but now the truth was about to be buried once more, perhaps forever.
They took me to a black site, a facility known only as Site Gamma, buried deep within the desolate Nevada desert, not far from the infamous Area 51. The journey was a blur of blindfolds, uncomfortable restraints, and the disorienting thrum of a helicopter. Once there, I was placed in an interrogation room, a stark, windowless box of concrete and steel, illuminated by a single harsh fluorescent light. General Thorne wasted no time. For days, the questioning was relentless, a cycle of threats, cajoling, and thinly veiled accusations. They wanted everything: the exact location of the entrance, the specifics of the technology, the nature of the beings, and most importantly, what I had done to activate the facility. They paraded experts before me, physicists, linguists, even psychologists, all attempting to dissect my story, to find the cracks in my sanity, to pry loose the secrets I now held. I refused to yield. I told them the truth, the unvarnished, impossible truth about the builders, their benevolent purpose, and the global network of ancient sites designed to usher humanity into a new era of consciousness. I explained that the increasing energy signature wasn't a threat, but a signal, an awakening. I reiterated my plea. This was not something to be contained or weaponized. It was a legacy to be understood. Thorne, however, was obsessed with control. "Dr. Vance," he stated during one particularly grueling session, leaning across the table, his face a mask of grim determination, "we have already detected similar energy spikes, one in the Giza Plateau, another in the Nazca Lines region, and a particularly strong one emanating from the Bermuda Triangle. You didn't just activate the Sedona anomaly, Doctor. You triggered a global event." My blood ran cold. The holographic map from the central chamber showing the interconnected energy grid across Earth flashed in my mind. The builder's network was indeed coming online simultaneously across the planet. This wasn't just about Sedona anymore. It was about every corner of the world where ancient mysteries had hinted at something more.
My interrogators at Site Gamma were not interested in understanding. They were interested in exploitation. My warnings about the benevolent nature of the builders and the global network fell on deaf ears. General Thorne was convinced I was either delusional or intentionally withholding information. He believed the facilities were weapons, or at the very least, a source of unparalleled technology to be reverse-engineered and controlled. While I was confined, Thorne's teams, comprised of military engineers and captured scientists, began their assault on the Sedona anomaly. They used powerful sonic drills, exonic energy pulses, and even rudimentary explosives to try and force their way deeper into the structure, attempting to bypass what they perceived as security protocols. They tried to dismantle the Obsidian Sentinel on Whispering Peak, believing it to be the main control unit, but their efforts were met with only increased energy fluctuations. I knew, with a sickening certainty, that they were making a grave mistake. The builders had designed these systems for harmony, for subtle interaction. Brute force would not unlock their secrets. It would provoke an unintended response. And it did. Reports started filtering back to Site Gamma, relayed by frantic technicians. The energy levels within the Sedona facility were spiking wildly, far beyond anything predicted. The internal luminescence of the glyphs had become a blinding, strobing cascade of light. The crystalline stellae in the central chamber were not just glowing, they were crackling with uncontrolled arcs of raw energy, resembling miniature lightning storms. The holographic projector, instead of displaying its elegant star maps, now spewed chaotic bursts of light and incoherent data as if overwhelmed. General Thorne himself, along with the team of his most trusted specialists, was inside the central chamber when the true reckoning began. I heard the muffled shouts and the panicked commands over the secure communication lines they inadvertently left open in my cell. The structural integrity of the facility, which had withstood millennia, was now being compromised. The dark, polished walls began to shudder, displaying hairline fractures that pulsed with an eerie, internal light. It wasn't designed to be breached, it was designed to react. Suddenly, a deafening, high-pitched wail erupted, echoing even within my shielded cell. It was unlike any sound I had ever heard, a pure, resonant frequency that vibrated through my very bones. This was followed by a colossal tremor that shook the entire Site Gamma, making the concrete walls groan and lights flicker. The energy anomaly from Sedona, which had been expanding slowly, suddenly erupted outwards with a force that was utterly cataclysmic. Simultaneously, reports from around the globe confirmed my worst fears. The Bermuda Triangle anomaly flared with unprecedented power, causing ships and aircraft to vanish without a trace. The Giza Plateau pulsed with an electromagnetic surge that temporarily shut down all modern technology across North Africa. And near the Nazca Lines, unexplained seismic events began to tear fissures across the ancient landscape. Thorne's crude attempts to dominate the Sedona anomaly hadn't just affected one site, they had catastrophically destabilized the entire planetary network. They had awakened not just the builder's system, but its most fundamental, powerful, and now uncontrolled defensive protocols. The keepers of ancient wisdom had been provoked, and the consequences were now reverberating across the very fabric of the planet. The cataclysmic energy surge from the global network of alien facilities had immediate and profound effects. The wail from Sedona was just the beginning. The planet vibrated, not with geological tremors, but with a resonant frequency that seemed to hum from within its very core. Satellite communications failed globally, GPS systems went dark, and the delicate balance of Earth's magnetic field was thrown into disarray. The aurora borealis and australis expanded dramatically, painting the entire night sky with swirling, vibrant tapestries of light, visible even from latitudes that had never witnessed such phenomena. At Site Gamma, chaos reigned. The facility's power grids overloaded, plunging us into darkness. Emergency lights flickered, casting long, distorted shadows as alarms blared. The guards, disoriented and panicked, abandoned their posts. In the confusion, a sympathetic junior technician who had overheard snippets of my delusional warnings unlocked my cell. "Go, Dr. Vance," he whispered, his face pale with terror. "You were right. They messed with something they shouldn't have." I emerged from Site Gamma to a world transformed. The Nevada desert, usually stark and lifeless, was bathed in the surreal glow of the expanded auroras. The air crackled with residual energy, and there was an unsettling silence, broken only by the distant, disembodied cries of desperate people. The global network, awakened by Thorne's hubris, had not just unleashed defensive protocols, it had initiated a planetary recalibration. The builders' ancient systems, designed to nudge humanity towards a higher consciousness, were now, in their uncontrolled state, forcing a global reset. Cities struggled without power, communication, or navigation. Nations, blind and isolated, teetered on the brink of panic and conflict. Yet, amidst the chaos, something else was happening. The prolonged exposure to the amplified energy fields and the subtle frequency shifts was having an unforeseen effect on humanity. Reports, initially dismissed as mass hysteria, began to surface. People experiencing vivid collective dreams of stars and ancient beings, a sudden surge in intuitive abilities, a universal feeling of interconnectedness that transcended cultural and national divides. The builders' legacy, the latent genetic markers and spiritual guidance they had imbued, was now being triggered. I knew General Thorne and his remaining forces would eventually regroup, would attempt to regain control, to silence the truth. But it was too late. The secret was out, not through words or documents, but through a visceral, global experience. The sky itself was a testament, a cosmic billboard declaring our true place in the universe. Humanity had been forced to look up, to truly see and to feel. As I walked away from the ruined black site, heading towards the rising sun in the distance, I looked back at the sky, still dancing with impossible colors. The road ahead would be difficult, fraught with fear and the remnants of old power structures fighting to maintain control. But for the first time in my life, I felt a true sense of purpose. I had witnessed the truth, survived the reckoning, and now I had a role to play in guiding humanity through this unprecedented awakening. The Sedona anomaly had not just revealed an ancient secret, it had ignited the next chapter of human evolution. We were no longer alone, and the universe, in all its terrifying and magnificent glory, had finally called us home.